So when we left off, we were on chapter 3. If you remember, Sam the lion, our main character, the dog here, he's got the Douglets tooth. It's a little tuft of hair that's right on the top of his head. And it looks like he's a fancy schmancy show dog. And Mrs. Nutbush, big bulbous lady, grabs him. She's inspecting, and we have a good picture of her holding him up as she's eyeballing every part of his body. And if you look in the picture too, this picture right here, if you look in the window of the airplane, you can see Heidi, and she's watching all this like, what in the heck? That lady looks like she's inspecting it like she's about to eat it. And although Mrs. Nutbush is very excited about him, she thinks he's going to be a world champion dog. She's all excited. She puts him back in the cage, and Sam has this inkling like he needs to get out of there. So what does the dog start doing? He's trying to open the cage door. And Heidi mouths the words up, and Sam figures out, like, instead of trying to, like, open the cage door with his tongue in his mouth, like, this way, she's saying, like, you gotta pull the latch up. Chapter 3 is where we left off. Gross. A few minutes later, Heidi's bags banged about her knees as she walked down the plane stairs. Before entering the terminal, she looked back at the dachshund, still in the dog crate 20 feet away. She stopped, checked to see if anyone was watching. She stepped away from the yellow dotted line on the tarmac, meant to keep people from doing exactly what she was doing. She approached the stack of animal boxes and scanned their panting contents. There were every variety and shape of exotic breed. It was like a sidewalk fruit stall of dogs. She found the dachshund, bent down, and looked into the cage. He stopped biting the latch and looked up into her eyes, surprised that the young human being had gotten out of her own crate so easily. Heidi leaned her face in close to the bars. "Hello, wiener dog." He was nervous, but he was polite. "Hello, hairless lips." She pointed to the latch. "You're doing it all wrong." The dog suddenly forgot about escape, and his questions poured out. "What breed are you? You smell good. How do you keep rain out of those ears? How can you sniff the ground with that little nose? Your eyes are greenish. Do you see everything greenish? Do you have fingers on your other 2 feet? Do you eat kibble?" Remember, in italics, that means that's what he's like thinking, but he's probably more like barking, yelping. Heidi furrowed her brow. "I'm sorry, I don't understand dog." "Here, try this," he said. And the dachshund then did something that would change the rest of his life. He kissed her. More precisely, he licked her right under the nose. Not on the mouth, with the common paint roller application of dog spit, the big kahuna, as Labradors call it. No, this was a gently executed upward swipe of the last quarter-inch of tongue to the tiny band of flesh between the nostrils, the forbidden promised land of dog affection. It is a gesture, weirdly, wholly unique among an entire planet of animal types. A person may place his or her face before that of a panda bear, a parrot, a warthog, a whale, a lizard, elephant, trout, lemur, llama, monkey, rhinoceros, bunny, ferret, hamster, horse, house cat, or domesticated deek-deek. But none of those will do what a dog will do. A kiss. Unless the person's face is covered with jam, or, in case of the cat, mouse intestines. Ew. Neither counts. No, only a dog will smooch a human being, and he'll aim the kiss for the lips, but be happy with a nose, a chin, an ear, a neck, a toe, or a butt. Unlike grandmothers, dogs are not fussy. In Heidi's case, it was under the nose. She stood up straight as if slapped. The dachshund looked equally shocked. Neither knew it at the time, but a line had been crossed that could not be uncrossed. A running leap over the chasm of ignorance and misunderstanding between species and worlds, and a baby step taken into life's endless possibilities for wonder and joy and surprise that could no more be reversed than one's first taste of chocolate. A dog kiss. That was completely gross, Heidi said. With a flourish, she wiped off the little amount of moisture with a sleeve. Really, it was nothing. Above her upper lip, without looking away from the dachshund who continued to stare at her, she spun around and walked briskly toward the terminal door, but not before flipping the crate's latch upward and off. Chapter 4. Moo. "I'm Mrs. Beaglehole," said an enormous, elegant woman who Heidi mistook for a trained red cow. She stood stiffly at the inside of the airline terminal doorway, hands clasped, figured Heidi about where her udder should. Her hands clasped, figured Heidi about where her udder should be. Mrs. Beaglehole blinked rapidly and looked down at the girl. Miss Heidi McLeod, I presume? I now run your uncle's dog ranch. Welcome to Piddleton. She held out a long hand. Heidi reached for it carefully with her own while eyeing the woman's toothy mouth. Cow's attack. And welcome to your new life, Mrs. Beaglehole said, folding her hands again. Your uncle's so very interested in seeing you again, maybe with your hair brushed. How old were you again when you last visited him? 13? 6, said Heidi. The woman snorted and pretended not to hear. He has great plans for you, you know. But I don't like dogs, said Heidi. She thought she should put that out there early. Mrs. Beaglehole looked as if she had been stuck with a knitting needle. Not like dogs? Why? Heidi looked back at the woman with equal shock. Did this ridiculous human heifer really not know it was because of dogs? Dogs that her parents had died when she was a little kid? That it was because of dogs that her criminally negligent uncle had dispatched her to stew with the mutant nuns at St. Egregious for all those torturous years? She didn't know that it was because of dogs that Heidi's life was now shredded like one of her stupid uncle's giant canvas chew toys. Apparently not, concluded Heidi. I don't like dogs, she finally said, because they always need a bath. Mrs. Beaglehole's smile tightened with annoyance and spread so wide that Heidi worried the ends of her mouth might stretch all the way around her neck and meet, allowing the mighty head to spring off and hit the ceiling. Dogs don't need baths here, said Miss Beaglehole, unlike children. How must you be so looking forward to yours? Heidi stopped listening because she noticed something peculiar about Mrs. Beaglehole as she talked. With her head cocked ever so slightly to the left, the woman had one eye closed and the other focused on the center of the girl's face. She was citing Heidi's nose for straightness. Exactly like the blue-furred woman had looked at the dachshund. Heidi sighed and rolled her eyes. She looked past Mrs. Beaglehole and through the huge terminal windows, looking hard for the mountains of Fiji. But she didn't see Fiji outside. She saw the dachshund out of his crate, crouched at the base of a pile of luggage on the tarmac outside, waiting to lunge for freedom. A lion in the bush, Heidi thought, smiling. Her first smile that day. She watched the dog make a dash for the tarmac fence, but several workers cut him off, sending him into another group having lunch. His forward momentum took him straight up the leg of the first man, past the chest, up his face, which had several fries sticking out of it. Dogs are creatures of survival, so he instinctively grabbed all of them with his teeth as he climbed, hooking a rear paw into the man's open mouth. He pushed himself onto the top of the man's head. The man flailed as if being attacked by a fruit bat. The other man grabbed for the dog, but then the escapee leapt to his head. Other workers ran up, and the dog kept leaping from head to head to head to head to head, and so forth. You might think these acrobatics enough to fully occupy a dog's attention, but no, they are multitaskers at their core, and he finished chewing the stolen French fries. Don't leave yet. His first French fries ever, as it happens. The dog licked his lips and made a mental note that his favorite thing in the world was no longer kibble. Inside the terminal, Mrs. Nutbush shrieked in horror at the sight of her Douglas dachshund escaping across the scalps of Piddleton's sweatiest luggage handlers. Heidi watched as the furred woman surged forward and body slammed through the glass security doors. Airport alarms erupted, as did Mrs. Nutbush. Get him! Get him! No! Don't touch the tooth! She yelled, arms out, hands waving, fur coat flapping. She got 20 feet before the first of a dozen security people tackled her, looking, Heidi thought, like the Notre Dame backfield piling atop a 200-pound blue rodent. Heidi gave a long, low whistle and in awed admiration. Some dogs, she said aloud. A stray, no doubt. A mongrel, snorted Mrs. Beaglehole. Grubby, undisciplined mutts need a leash. As she mumbled this, she reached into her large purse and removed a dog's leash. Heidi's eyes went large as the woman bent down toward Heidi's neck. She stopped, catching herself. Oh, I'm sorry, old habit, she said, smiling that tight, lipless smile again. Mrs. Beaglehole picked up Heidi's bags and nudged Heidi out the front doors to a town car idling in front of the terminal, waiting to take her to the rest of her life. And if you saw that picture of Ms. Beaglehole getting tackled, it looks pretty awesome.